I wanted to address an area that has been coming up a lot today. My partner Terry and I, we've been watching this show on Netflix. It's a series called Afterlife. Is that the name of it?
Life After Death?
Life After Death?
I think so.
Something like that. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a series. I think there's only one season, but there's like 8 shows or something like
I think
that.
it's 6.
6 shows? Okay. And it's about they're questioning and they're talking about life after death. In this show, they're talking about everything from seances to people coming back,
NDEs.
and end of life.
NDEs, near-death experiences.
Oh, near-death
NDEs,
experiences,
yeah.
like the first couple of programs is about near-death experiences. And lots of things about like people, when they get close to dying, that they have dreams, and not necessarily when they're sleeping. I mean, they can see and experience these things when they're not sleeping with their eyes awake, of relations and people, meeting people and things like that. And that's something that I experienced, Terry and I experienced with my father, who died last month. He was 95 years old, and he was receiving a lot of visitors. I mean, a lot of visitors, but they weren't showing. I mean, we couldn't see them. We didn't see them at all. But it was sometimes big groups of people and everything, and he would talk about it like it was real, and then you'd ask him if it was real, and he'd say, yeah, but no, and things like that. I mean, to him at the time, it was so real, and obviously it meant so much that it was very interesting talking to him about these people that would come and visit. And it wasn't scary or anything like that. It was, so it wasn't like ghosts or anything, but, he would say that things like, your brother was here and I was talking to him, and I'd say, really? And he'd look at me and kind of, yeah, and then you don't know whether he was really serious or whether he knew it was not real, or that he thought it was real, or all these things in between. But this series it's a Netflix series. It's about life after death, like what happens after we die. And you might want to check it out. And it's the idea that there is life after death is really kind of interesting. Hey, Joe.
Hello.
Kind of interesting, and in the show, when we're watching the show, they go, what if the possibilities of life, of there being life after another life after this one? And of course, in my mind, and everybody else that I hang with, they're going, of course. Of course there is life, there's something after this. And whether we're Christian or Buddhist or Hindu or spiritual or non-spiritual, everybody has their own ideas, and there's always lots of questions, and there's always lots of, it's a very interesting topic, let me put it that way. And so I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that, and just real briefly, maybe we can extend the talk later on after the meditation. But I wanted to guide guide a little bit of the meditation in that area about the possibilities and what to expect after life. And interestingly, from a spiritual context, we really feel that there's something more, and that means that there was something before this life. there's this life and then there's something after. And from the Buddhist perspective, there is the idea of, the Buddhist said that we are not the self, that there is no self. And basically what he was pointing to is that if we believe that we are the mind or the body, that is what he's referring to as the self. And in our language, the word ego comes up, from a psychological standpoint. And so from the standpoint, and what I believe anyway, is that we are not the mind or body, but we are consciousness, and we always were consciousness. And what we are is nothing that comes and goes, that we can experience one moment and have it not there the next, like a thought, or like a memory, like an emotion, like a body, like any of these things that appears and then seemingly disappears. So what we are is something much more substantial. We could call it awareness. We could call it a consciousness, like a lot of people do. But it is that aspect of us that never dies. It's not time bound. It's not related to time so much as the body and mind are. This stuff that we have, and it is also, from the standpoint of psychology, from the Western view, there's the conscious, and then there's also the subconscious. And I believe that the subconscious and the conscious travel as one, and the subconscious is the storehouse for all of our past experiences, all the things that have happened to us. And this is what I'm referring to as karma. The idea of a person's karma going from one life to this life to the next life, carrying on with that person. So what is carrying on is consciousness, both subconscious and conscious, when I say that. And one of the things that comes up is that there's no proof of any of this, and that we cannot prove that there is life after this life, that there is another life following this. And my view on that is that we should be very thankful that that's the case. And what I mean is that if man was able to figure out that that we did go from this life to another, and there's certain parameters and certain situations that made our next life better. And I know there's some people that don't want a next life, probably quite a number of them. And from the Buddhist standpoint, again, in Buddhism, that is an arhat, somebody that is fully awakened, wouldn't have the karma for a rebirth, so there wouldn't be another life that they would live. And again, if man did figure out that how to get these passes or these better papers so that they could have a more cushy life, so their next life would be much more cushy, and so they do X, Y, and Z, and then everything will be much, much better in the next life. If man was able to figure that out outside of the spiritual morality kind of thing, we would do whatever possible to set that up for ourselves. So in other words, the ego would get in the way of our next life, rather than the opposite, where as long as we are attached to the ego and working with the ego, trying to bring these things into our life to make this body and mind much more comfortable, in other words, kind of catering to the ego, that is from a spiritual standpoint, that is going to cause suffering for us, and that will have problems for our rebirth, and that kind of guarantees that we will have a rebirth. In other words, we have to get these lessons in this life, and the past life and the following life. We have to learn these lessons, and if we had a shortcut to go through life and to the next one without learning these lessons, we would do it. Man would do it, and somebody would sell a system or sell a book or sell a manual for us to get to the next life or not to have another life without learning any of the lessons. And that's just the human nature, and that's how man is. And I think one of the big lessons that we have to get is understanding that the ego, this ego, or this aspect of the ego, is the mind and the body that we are catering to now at this time. And so we should be thankful that there is that mystery of going from one life to another and not having all of the answers to that, so that there is questions. And so all we have to know from this standpoint here, hey Mark, is that we have lessons to learn. And they keep coming up for us. They will keep coming up for us again and again and again until we get them. And we should know that. And I think most of us do know that, and we do understand that. Sometimes we forget, and hopefully we won't forget the things that we learned in this life and have to learn them again in our next life. I don't think it's designed that way. There's many other aspects of this, and many questions that come up, based on this philosophy of rebirth and having another life, and learning these lessons, and what to let go of and what to accept, and how to feel, basically how to feel about being okay with this life and going on to the next one. Because I think it's very, very important that we are ready by the time that we die, that time that we say, I'm done with this body and mind, I'm ready for my next one, or I'm ready for whatever's next. That we're comfortable doing that. I think it's very, very important. Otherwise, we will have a fearful rebirth. Again, this is my view. This is my belief. We could be born a very fearful person, or a very saddened person if we're not ready, for our next life, not prepared for it. And thankfully, meditation allows us to do that, allows us to prepare for that. Because in meditation, we become sensitive to all this. And all of the answers, they come to us. At least they have a much better chance of coming to us because of the opportunities of insight and these kinds of things that meditation allows us to be a part of, and allows insight to come up for us. So it's very very much from a spiritual standpoint, it is very much a belief that propels us and that keeps us into that spiritual realm, that there is something after this life. And again, I believe it's consciousness. I don't believe that when we die, we have anything like this body. We have a completely different body and completely different mind. There is that veil of forgetfulness, but it's not always so much of a veil, especially when we look at past life regressions. There can be holes in this awareness of our past lives, and that's quite common for somebody in this life, especially for children. which is also another topic in that series, Netflix series, that we can get a glimpse of a past life. And when that happens, I can vouch by experience that it changes everything. It changes our view of everything that we stand for if we had not believed in past lives and future lives before that. Getting a glimpse of a past life and understanding it, really seeing it as the real deal, means that there are continuing lives, throughout, before and after, and perhaps hundreds of them, if not thousands of them. And the Buddha spoke on this quite a bit, and he used it for his teachings, his experience of past, reliving his past lives, experiencing his past lives. Hundreds of them. Actually, he had hundreds of past lives, and again, you can read about some of them in the sutras, in the Buddhist sutras. But I'm not just speaking from the Buddhist standpoint. I'm speaking from a human standpoint. That I think we're very fortunate. We can be sitting on this razor's edge. I mean, literally sitting on this razor's edge, and we can go this way, one way into our spiritual beliefs, and feel that there is a whole new life ahead of us, or we could go the other way too, and feel like and actually let the ego take over and feel that this is my body and this is my mind, and when these things are destroyed through sickness and old age or disease, whatever, that this is done. That this is me, this stuff here. Or consequently, if this is me, then everything out there is me as well, including thoughts and beliefs and memories of the past, and particularly emotions. Many people feel that this is what they are, but these things just simply come and go. They come into our awareness and come into our consciousness and fall away. The only thing that stays there and is able to witness this is that consciousness, is that awareness, and that is what I believe anyway that we are. And I'll address that when we do our meditation here. And before we'll start our meditation in just a moment, are there any questions? And we can have much more time for questions afterwards if you like. Feel free to close the eyes. Bring your awareness to the body and see how the body feels. See if there's any aches or pains or discomfort or maybe even pleasurable feelings in the body. All of this being completely natural. The reason we focus on the body, of course, is to bring our attention to the present moment so that we don't have the mind thinking about the future or the past. And then while the mind is in the present moment, we have a much better chance of going deeper into the practice, meaning that through the practices of insight and having more of a keen awareness, we could say, we get an opportunity to understand ourselves and consequently understand others at a deeper level. And so one of the areas of the body that many people focus on is the breath. I can bring my attention to the breath at the tip of the nose, kind of around the nostrils. That works really well for me. If my attention seems to be a little bit scattered, sometimes I'll count the breaths. I might count them using a mala, or sometimes I'll just actually visualize the number of the breath, like on a screen in front of me. And for myself, I have to remind myself again and again that this is not a time to be fixing. In other words, my mind has a tendency to go into the future and kind of take care of things, make some plans, do some chores. Maybe think about something that is inspiring for me in the future. It's very, 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 very easy for my mind to go there. So these are things that I have to be aware of. Other people, their mind will go into the past, thinking about things that happened, how unfortunate they might be, or how unfortunate some situations might be, or even about wonderful things that have happened in the past, and possibly how they wish for these wonderful things to happen more and more in the future. And many of us think that these thoughts and these emotions are us. And these thoughts can be likened to the waves on an ocean. And the emotions that are carried with these thoughts would be the deep undercurrents within the ocean. And even though they might be deep undercurrents and the thinking and thoughts might be like waves, all of these things are impermanent, coming and going. And so if we believe that we are the emotions and thoughts and feelings, memories, what we do is have a tendency to think that we can fix these things and kind of pad them in a way that we can have a much better life, a better world, if we can fix these thoughts and these emotions and all these things. As long as we believe that this is what we are, or a big part of us, we will continue to do this. And then the other area we believe is us is the body. We believe that this is my arm and my leg, my torso, my head. And as we know, the body is very impermanent as well. And these are really the things that make up the ego. Even the ownership is a part of the ego. The control is a part of the ego. And it causes a great deal of suffering for people. And there's a part of us that can watch all of this. I mean, who is saying that this is my body? Who is saying that these are my thoughts, my emotions? That part of us is the consciousness or the awareness, whatever term we wish to use. The witness. And if we understand the view that this is something that is never born and never dies, it's not time-bound, and it's something that can be very, very much explored in our meditation when we come into the present moment. And that's why meditation is the kind of practice that it is. It's very, very important for us to have a practice like meditation to understand who we are at the deepest level, which is this consciousness. When we sit in the present moment, focusing on the breath or whatever tool we want to use, some aspect of the body generally works very, very well. We understand that the outer world is just that. It's the outer world. It has no bearing on our being complete. It has no bearing on our happiness. It doesn't have to. Because what we see and hear and experience is not us. It's just a small aspect of the world that we are experiencing and sharing. And I mean the physical world. And we should be very, very thankful that we are alive and being able to experience all of this. Because we have to learn the lessons in life. Otherwise, we will come back and get an opportunity again and again and again, which is basically what life is. So we focus on the breath, or maybe some other area of the body. Maybe we count the breaths. Maybe we visualize something. Whatever it takes, and we come into this presence, relinquishing the past and the future. We expand those moments of present moment awareness. And in that, we are expanding our awareness, our understanding of this consciousness that we are. We are not the ego. We can watch the ego, but that's not who we are. We're not the mind or the body. And that's good news. So we sit in silence, and this is a good time to ask ourselves, and sometimes we can ask continually, ask the questions, who am I? We can focus on the breath and ask the question at the same time, who am I? And see what comes up. This is a good time to do it. bring our hands together in front of our hearts, if you like. May each one of us and all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to us. May no difficulties come to us. May we all meet with spiritual and worldly success. And may we have the patience, courage, and the understanding to meet and overcome any problems or difficulties that we may face. Thank you. Well, again, I want to thank everybody for a nice meditation, and it's different meditating with a group than by yourself, you know. So it's always good. I always look forward to Wednesday nights. It's the best night of the week for me in most cases. So thank you. We're talking about and working with, I hope, consciousness and who we are. You know, are we awareness or consciousness, as opposed to thinking that we are the body and the mind, which is a lot. I mean, it's a lot. You know, if we talk to somebody on the street, you know, so to speak, and just say, you know, what do you feel you are? Most people would probably go immediately to the body. And, you know, they might say their age and refer to the body. I look pretty good for blah de blah, or I don't look so good for blah de blah age, you know. And you know, and we do refer to our hands, our arms, our breathing, our, you know, our this and that, you know. So we really do feel like that we are the body in many cases. There's body ailments when we wake up, and our body stiffness, my leg falling asleep when I meditate, or, you know, my legs being uncomfortable or something like that. So it's almost automatic. And then the same way with the mind. You know, I had a thought, you know, so we feel like that's my thought, or I am feeling a blah de blah, referring to our emotions. I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling happy. I'm happy for you, or, you know, that kind of thing. And then, of course, our past, we feel that something that happened in the past, a memory is something that was ours, that is ours. You know, it's our memory, our association, and then our future. You know, what am I going to do with my future? That kind of thing. So it really does feel as if it's us, but when we look at all the different types of suffering that can be a consequence of that, we really should work at being free from that, you know, understanding who we are beyond the body and mind. Because it's, if somebody says the wrong thing, you know, our feelings get hurt. If somebody says something that they don't like, a certain particular thing about our body, we can get hurt about that pretty easily, you know. The idea of being depressed, you know, we feel like that's our depression. And even if it's a chemical depression, you know, which granted that happens, and many of them are, from a chemical response, but even from that aspect, it's still the body. That depression is because of the body, working this way or that way. It's not like we should disregard any of it, because the body and the mind are, wonderful tools, and we use them all the time, constantly. And, there's really wonderful things we can do with it. I heard the other day, we're running this class, maybe some of you are in it, this program called Mastering Your Emotions. And it's on Saturday mornings, and I've been, really working a lot in the area of emotions and looking at it. And there's 4 factors that are really affect our emotions a lot. One of them is, of course, meditation. That is very beneficial for our overall emotions and our hormones. And the other one is exercise. Another one is diet. And then another one is light, the amount of light that we receive, and the types of light that we have. And that's why a lot of times in the winter time, especially up north, people will have difficulties during that period, because they're not in the light enough. They don't get enough of the proper light. So meditation, exercise, diet, and light are very, very important for our overall happiness. For it to kind of balance our hormones, I should say. And so those are really aspects of body and mind. All 4 of those, And we could go on and list these different things that are a factor in how we could use the term we feel and how we operate, but there's still somebody that can watch all of this and see all of this, and notice that it's going on, and there's somebody that says, I'm going to have a better diet so that I feel better. Who is this I? I am going to have a better diet so I feel better. There's something behind that. And so if we ever, we can use this in many different ways, of course, but if we feel down in the dumps, we feel like we have a negative emotion happening, we can look at where it's coming from in respect to the body and the mind. And we could see really the kind of trickery behind it, the falseness behind it. If we are consciousness, that's what we are. It has nothing to do with those things. Not directly, anyway. So I wanted to see if there's any questions or anything that anybody else wants to share in this moment. I know it can bring up a lot of different things. The idea of the body and mind, and of course we're talking about life after this life, past lives, this life, and next life. And you guys online, thank you so much. If you would have any questions, any of you have any questions or anything I can help with throughout the week, let me know. Just send me an email or text me, and that's about it. Yeah, thank you. We'll see you next week, okay? Thank you.